All right, new problem, and we're going to approach it in the same way. We're going to go ahead here and read the question first. And that question reads, what is the height? And the information, the conditional information that we're provided with says a flare is fired upward at this speed from this platform. And then after 2 seconds, what is the height? So right there, my party people, that's what we want to highlight. What is the height? Reading the information, that's all I care about. I don't care if they say velocity. I don't care if they say starting height. I am looking for the height. Anything that has to do with height. So here we go. It says projectile motion follows h equals negative 16y squared plus by plus c. That definitely sounds like a lot, right? But let's understand what these letters mean. We have h, y, b, and c, where h is the height in feet, and y is time in seconds, b is the initial upward velocity, and c is the initial height. So we have the initial height, and we have a final height. And so with that said, everybody, which one is it that we're trying to look for? Given the wording of the problem, after 2 seconds, what's the height? So are we looking for the initial height, c, or are we looking for the final height, h? Let's sort through that. Which of these are we actually looking for? H or C? Which one is it to you? Yeah, and if you're saying H, you're absolutely right. Absolutely correct. Because, let's write this down here. Let's highlight this. H is the height in feet. We have our initial height right here, but we're not going to pay attention to that because look at the wording of the question sentence. After 2 seconds. There's no way that this height would be the initial height, the beginning height, because it's saying after 2 seconds. So that's not the beginning height, that's the final height that we're looking for. And that's going to be represented by h. So before I continue, are we in agreement that in the equation h equals negative 16y squared plus by plus c, we are looking for h? Can we feel secure and good about that before we get started? Okay. And remember, we want to go ahead and explain to ourselves where we can. But we have everything we need now. We know what we're looking for. And now what we need to carefully do is replace these values that were given here in green. We want to replace each of these values given to us in the right spots. The first one that's going to be the easiest is what we've already been talking about, and that's going to be the initial height. So allow me to highlight this one in blue. C is the initial height. Everybody, what number represents the initial height? What number here? Yeah, if you're taking a look at the 50, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Because again, C is the starting height, the initial height, and we see that it says from a 50-foot platform. That's the initial height. That's the height that we started at. So with that, we're going to replace C with 50. Next up, here it says that Y is time in seconds. Everybody, how many seconds do we remember being mentioned in this calculation? That's going to be 2. That's going to be 2. Y is time in seconds, and it says after 2 seconds. So each of these instances of Y, I'm going to replace with 2. So I'm going to say H equals negative 16 times 2 squared plus whatever B is times 2. And let me go ahead and clean this up ever so slightly. Let me move that over so you can see the addition. And then let me move this over as well for a little more space. My party people, we only have one more number to fill in, and that's going to be for B. But let me just confirm with you that you can be confident that you know what it means. So over here, we're going to take a look at purple, and it's going to say that B is the initial upward velocity in feet per second. Here, it says it's fired upward at 56 feet per second. Everybody, that's it right there. We can plug in 56 in for B. And now we're ready to calculate. However, I think we can all agree this looks like a much different calculation than what we're used to when we're seeing equations, but that's okay. We'll take this one at a time and we'll succeed with those order of operations. So first things first, let's take care of the exponent. Everybody, 2 squared is the same as 2 times 2, and that'll give us 4. So let's replace everything now. We have h equals negative 16 multiplied by 4. And then over here we have 56 times 2. Let's go ahead and do 56 multiplied by 2. 6 times 2 is going to give us 12, carry the 1. And then we have 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1 is 11. So we'll have 112 right over here, plus 50. And then we'll continue forward. We'll have 16 multiplied by 4, but we have to be very careful about the signs that we use. So we'll bring this over here, and let's think about those signs. We have 16 multiplied by 4. 6 times 4 is going to give us 24, carry the 2. And then we have 1 times 4, which is 4, carry the 2, and that is 6. So everybody, what are we going to have? A positive or negative 64? Which one are we going to use? When we multiplied a positive and a negative, that's going to give us a negative. So this will be negative 64 plus 112 plus 50. So at this point, we should feel pretty good because we've calculated pretty well, and all we have to do at the end here is just add, subtract, and we're done. So let's get that going. I'm going to focus on the positive numbers here. The 112 and the 50, I'll combine those. So I'll have over here negative 64 plus 112 plus 50, which is 162. Lastly, we got to figure out what negative 64 plus 162 is. But thankfully, we don't need to do it that way because remember that 1 plus 2 is the same as 2 plus 1. You can swap those out. So you can actually say, if you wanted to, instead of negative 64 plus 162, 162 minus 64. We can think about it in that way, and that makes this much more solvable because when we are subtracting here, some mental math can say, hey, if I take away 62, I get down to 100. I got 2 more to go. 62 to 64, 2 more to go. So subtract 2 from 100, and we'll get 98. Don't believe me? We can go ahead and do that right over here. This one's actually tougher to do paper and pencil because 2 minus 4 can't do that. Borrow a 1. 12 minus 4, that'll be 8. And then 15 minus 6, that'll be 9. So there we are. 98 will be our answer. 98 feet is the height after 2 seconds of this projectile in the air, the flare that's described.